why not sit back, relax, and take it easy like a Sunday morn? I'm your host, Shane Lockwood, and today is the 6th of May 2018. This is episode 70 of everybody's favourite relaxation-based self-help current events podcast set in Adelaide, South Australia. Welcome back, regular listeners, and welcome aboard to all those who are listening to this for the very first time. Today is going to be a bit of a different show as I sit back in my chair and just relax and about to engage in the big can. It is a 440ml can of Pepsi Max. Please excuse me. Delicious. Anyway, feel free to do the same. Crack open a beverage and just relax, because for the next period of time, I don't know how long that'll be, we're going to just calm down, sit back, relax, and we're going to let go of everything that's gone on before during the previous week. A lot of people use this particular podcast to relax and unwind, help them go to sleep. Sometimes people just like to listen to this and zone out after work and things like that. So that's perfectly acceptable, and that's what we're going to do right now. If you are in bed, get comfortable, close your eyes, slow your breathing down, turn off any electronics except for whatever it is that you're using to listen to this, and just get nice and comfortable. Make sure your pillows are comfortable and that sort of thing. Slow everything down, make sure you've got everything done, got everything prepared for work the next day and all that sort of stuff. And the purpose of this podcast, if you've never heard of it before, is to embrace the feeling that you get on a Sunday morning. So before the mad rush of having to do everything that you need to do for Monday mornings with work and whatnot, it's that period before anything happens, before anybody turns on their lawnmowers, before the birds start chirping and the dogs start barking and you've got to go to church or whatever it is that you happen to do, mosque or synagogue or whatever it is that you happen to do in your life, whatever you do on Sundays, before you even check your emails or listen to other podcasts and things like that, you just set everything into neutral. And from that neutral position, you can start to plan your week, plan your future, plan your year. You can do a whole heap of things. So you can look at your financial statements or look at just what needs to be done in terms of, say, laundry or meal preparation if you are going to the gym, what kind of workout plans you need to be doing, and so on and so forth. I'm not here to tell you how to run your life. All I'm doing is reminding people that sometimes we do need a break from everything, and we do need to switch off our electronic devices and just unplug for a little bit. It's just 30 minutes a week, and do whatever it is that we need to do, putting ourselves first, not in a selfish sense, but rather so that we are empowered to then help to empower other people. Just that clarity of mind, just to mull over who in your life is beneficial, who isn't. Is there a business opportunity that you're looking at, but you are worried that it might be a pyramid scheme or something like that? Why not go online, spend 30 minutes researching the company, talking to people. If there are any businesses that are telling you not to ask questions, to not ask for feedback and things like that, because they might be some negative feedback, do the opposite and actually do more research, because you may find that the people saying don't ask around about certain companies and multi-level marketing and network marketing and things like that, they're more often than not pyramid schemes and scams, and you're going to be taken for a ride. And I don't want my listeners to be taken for a ride. That's my job. No, just kidding. Just kidding. Save your money. Do what you need to do. And I want to say thank you to Melissa, who gave me a little bit of feedback in that she said that she started saving a little bit of money in a separate bank account. Now, I'd mentioned this before as part of the 52 weeks until awesome, or no, 52 weeks of awesome, a little thing that I'd started. It's fairly basic. The premise was basically you have a bigger goal. Say you set the time frame to achieve that goal a year from now, and then you break up that big goal into small weekly chunks, and then you do those individual chunks every week. So you've got plenty of time to do whatever else that you want to do, play video games or go for a walk in the park. All those little distractions and Facebook and things that eat away at some of your time, basically. But if you have one thing that you have to do every week to achieve that goal, and you do that one thing every week, then you're going to be a lot closer. By the end of the year, you actually should be at your destination and ready to do whatever it is. So say if it's a trip overseas, it might be several $1,000s. So you divide that by 52 and you'll get a figure which you can say put money aside. Now what I'd said was I'd suggested putting money aside in a separate bank account, and you can actually go to your bank and say, could you please transfer a certain amount of money when I get paid? You divert that pay into the second bank account. So you get your normal pay, say $25 or something like that, goes into the second bank account, and all of a sudden you're saving money, right? I started doing that. I did dip into it my own a little bit when I started working on the fruit fly project, and that fruit fly project is finished now, and so I'm currently out of work, but I managed to save quite a bit of money. But this side project, now I do save, say, $25 every fortnight. Now it's not a lot of money. A fortnight means every second week, so it's not a whole lot of money. Depending on your own income levels, you can manipulate the percentages and stuff like that. So 10% of your income may be different to 10% of my income. So if you're just putting like a percentage, now you can set it up as a percentage at the bank, or I prefer round numbers, so it's like $25. Now you could probably do 50, you could do 100, depending on what you want to do. But the number has to be small enough so that it's not a burden on your main lifestyle. So it's just a little bit off the top. And because it's paying yourself before you have to worry about anything else, it can happen. You can do it regardless of your income level. So if you're on welfare, you can probably drop that down to say $5 or $10 a fortnight, depending on what it is that you're actually doing. A big thank you to Adam Kochi from the Podcaster Non Grata podcast for the expression the Bewitcher from Stitcher, which I acknowledge and accept, and will possibly even use in a future podcast myself. Just remember that your podcast is your podcast. While feedback is important and can sometimes be very, very beneficial, just make sure that any ideas that people introduce marry up with what you want and intend for your own podcast. I'd also like to thank Dan Medzi for the various shout-outs on his own podcast, the Nongcast Show, that's Nongcast, Nongcast, and for changing the name so that it's less offensive to people who are Chinese and people who have Down syndrome. So congratulations on doing that. And I will record a few messages and things for your podcast when I get the chance. It will be good to record something where I don't have to censor myself. To be fantastic. I want to thank everybody who has
contributed to the Patreon account and also through PayPal, because you've allowed me to upgrade this podcast to a Spreaker Pro account. Now, it wasn't a whole heap of money, but I kept holding back, right? The one thing that was holding me back was I had to keep deleting episodes in order to produce new content, right? Because I was trying to do this for free. When you donated to my Patreon account, it meant that I could actually save up money and finally get a pro account. I don't have to delete episodes anymore. I will still be transferring episodes over to YouTube. However, YouTube decided to remove me from the partnership program, so I'm not gaining anything from putting the podcast over there. I still will, because that's where some of my more loyal listeners can listen to it, because they are not tech savvy. They're not interested in downloading a podcast app just to listen to my podcast. I don't understand that, but that's the way things are. But YouTube also allows those people to leave code words and things like that. And there will be a code word at the end of this particular episode. So once again, thank you to my Patreon supporters. There seems to be some confusion in regards to Patreon and fan funding and things like that as well. This is not social media. This is a podcast. However, I have shared it on social media. Most people using social media don't expect to pay for the content. Whether you're using Facebook or whether you're using YouTube, you want stuff for free. However, there is always a cost involved. In order to alleviate that cost, Facebook and YouTube uses advertising. With YouTube, they were grateful enough to let people get a percentage of the advertising that they were generating through the content that they were producing. With Facebook, you've got no such luck. Now, YouTube, in its infinite wisdom, decided to remove me from their YouTube partnership program because I was not generating the 4,000 hours of watch time within a 12-month period that you needed to be part of their new threshold, nor did I have 1,000 subscribers. So they removed me from the YouTube partnership program, and that means that if I push this podcast over to YouTube as I normally would, that I don't get paid any extra money. So this is entirely fan funded, right? There is a cost in recording a podcast, unless you are uploading to SoundCloud and things like that. But you can only upload to SoundCloud to a certain point before they start charging you money. The same happens with Spreaker. I upload this podcast through Spreaker, and I'm allowed 5 free hours. Okay. That means with a half an hour episode, I get 10 episodes. After I upload the 10th episode, I then have to delete one episode, it's usually the oldest episode, in order to create new content. I'm no longer going to be doing that. That means I have to pay money to Spreaker in order to function. Okay? This is not social media, but I'm sharing this on a social media platform. This does cost money to do, so all those of you who wish to donate can do so with the links in the description bar down below. For those of you who don't wish to, that's perfectly fine. The podcast will always be free for those who are listening through the methods that they do. Now, we're going to take a step away from all that sort of stuff, and we're going to go deeper into the deep state meditation. The deep state, or a state within a state, is a political situation in a country when an internal organ, such as the armed forces or public authorities, intelligence agencies, police, secret police, administrative agencies, and branches of government bureaucracy, do not respond to the civilian political leadership. Donald Trump, who is the President of the United States at the time of recording this, thinks that there is a deep state conspiracy of all sorts of people preventing him from pushing forward his various goals and agendas. He even thought that Obama was wiretapping him in the Oval Office, a subfaction within the government to maintain the status quo. Think Humphrey from Yes Minister, only far more sinister. Although what you're hearing right now in the mainstream media are the ravings of a mad, mad president. On to other things. It's a good thing I've got two-factor security authentication on all of my passwords and all of my social media and things like that, because there was a 30-minute long password attack on my Patreon account, because I think it was due to people in various podcasting groups that I'd shared the podcast with. They listened to my podcast and decided to give me feedback, and then said, "Oh, gee, you talk about Patreon too much." Now, I had a bit of a whinge last episode because people didn't get what was going on. I explained it in this one, and I won't mention Patreon or anything like that ever again, except just as a thank you to those who are generally contributing to the podcast. But it was interesting because you could check the timestamps, and it was exactly 30 minutes, and the attacks were every 2 minutes, so it was automated, which I find very interesting. But it sort of leads me not to trust anybody in those various podcasting groups on Facebook. Another really awesome thing that's happened is I started going to a quiz night with a friend of mine and his girlfriend, and they normally do very, very well. And we started winning and getting the jackpots. There's a $250 jackpot each time. Starts off at $50 and then it jackpots, $50 increments to a maximum of $250. So we've been getting the $250 prize, I think, for the last 2 times that's been offered. So that's been absolutely fantastic. The fruit fly job that I was doing ended, I think, the day before Easter, and I told everybody that, I think. 3 Billboards in Epping is an absolutely fantastic movie. If you haven't seen it, do see it. Woody Harrelson and all the actors in it are absolutely fantastic. It's very political, but I can't remember the guy's name, but there's another guy who's a really brilliant actor as well. He plays a very dumb, bad guy, and he sort of has a bit of a redemption arc within the movie. Mild spoiler, but yeah. Turns out that Mark Hamill refuses to return to Star Wars, as there's no real point. He's been more than vocal about the direction of the Star Wars movies have gone in, and with, spoiler warning, the death of Luke Skywalker and the horrible way the franchise has been dealt with. And I don't blame him, really. I can't really... It's one of those things where you're not allowed to admit to not liking The Last Jedi, but I think a lot more people are coming around to the idea that it wasn't the best. It was the death of certain characters, and it was a mockery of the franchise and the legacy of the franchise. People are still trying to justify the movie, but I'm pretty much done with the Star Wars franchise. I'll go and see Solo, a Star Wars story. Excuse me. Solo, a Star Wars story. I'll go and see that. I've already bought a ticket to that. But I'm not really too excited. Hopefully Ron Howard might be able to turn the script around and do something decent with it, but we'll see what happens there. Lost in Space was part of a 10-part Netflix miniseries that was actually quite good. A lot of people were complaining about it, but I think that they did a really good job, and hopefully the second season will be really, really good. The robot is vastly improved. I think there was even a thing on Facebook about how there were people actually writing in about the backside and people falling in love with the backside of the robot from Lost in Space, the new one. It's strange. strange. Oh, Cobra Kai, for those who are Karate Kid fans, is another 10-part series. It's on YouTube Red. The first 2 episodes are free to watch, and if you join YouTube Red, you get a free month, and therefore you can watch the entire series. It's a 10-part season, and it's set after the movies. It's quite good. It's Danny LaRusso, Daniel-san, in basically 30 years later, and his relationship to Johnny, the guy that he kicked in the face at the end of the first movie. And yeah, it deals with various attitudes that have changed since the 80s and things like that. It sort of highlights them in very humorous fashion, and how progressive the school systems have become in America and things like that, as opposed to the very harsh, cold, even brutal aspect of the Cobra Kai dojo back in the 80s. And it's a lot more confronting and sexist and stuff like that now, and it's just sort of highlighted in very humorous fashion. So it's very entertaining, it's very nostalgic, and it's well worth looking at. If you have YouTube Red, go and check that out. I very much recommend it, and watch it all the way through to the very end of episode 10. You will not be disappointed. Another thing that has been going on lately is I've been getting these messages from Instagram, and they're people that they'll send you like a message saying, "Oh, hello." So you do the polite thing and you say hello back, and all of a sudden these people want to know where you live and whether you're interested in marriage and things like that. So that's obviously they're looking for vulnerable people. Anyway, a friend of mine said that Henry Winkler, the guy that played the Fonz, had followed her on Instagram. And I thought, that's a bit strange. So I followed him, and then he followed me back. And you think, oh, wow, this is the Fonz. This is the guy who was the coolest thing in our childhoods way back when. Anyway, long story short, the guy having this long conversation, and things are starting to get a bit sort of personal, and then he's sort of saying, oh, can you do me a favor, could you buy me a gift card? This is Henry Winkler, right? This is the guy that played the Fonz. This is a guy that's written a series of children's books for kids with dyslexia and stuff like that, right? So he's not short of money, right? So the idea of me needing to send him gift cards or anything is rather ridiculous. So I blocked him and reported it. It was obviously a fake account. Always check for the blue authentic either ticks or asterisks, or the blue thing, the official thing symbol that says that this person is an official celebrity and we know who this person is, who they say they are, and all that sort of stuff, right? They're verified is what I'm saying. So I then had to tell my friend, yeah, no, sorry, that's not the Fonz. Sorry, that was rather heartbreaking, but yeah. And I've been getting a whole heap of dodgy podcast advice. People saying they listen to one episode and go, oh, well, you shouldn't do this and you shouldn't do that. And I know what I should and shouldn't do. But if you have to talk about a specific things, for example, talking about Patreon and whether people are not supporting the show and stuff like that, I have every right to be very angry. If you spend at least 12 hours editing a podcast, now the podcast here is only like 30 minutes long, but every now and again I'll have to stop, pause, re-record segments over and over again until I get it right. Luckily this is just a free-form section, so it's not too bad. But if I pause too long, I've got to stop, go back, do all sorts of stuff, and then edit for this and that. Then I've got to run the podcast through various compressors and normalizers and different things to get the sound right, because there are people that are listening to this and they're not just listening to what I'm saying, they're listening for audio quality, and so it has to be what do you call it? It has to be at the highest quality that I possibly can make it, and I want to have the most entertaining show that I can. I realize this particular episode is not the best, and largely because I'm rusty. I've left it too long in between episodes. So, but because I've changed things so that I can do this whenever I want to, I can actually produce better quality episodes and things like that as a result of the Patreon funding and whatnot, which is awesome. That's better for you, it's better for me, it's better for everybody. So anyway, the dodgy advice that I got was that I shouldn't be spending so much time editing the program for quality and things like that. I should just be blasting what I've got everywhere, just promoting. Don't worry about the quality of the podcast. Don't worry about the listener. Just, get the message out there and just blast it everywhere. And you think, hang on a second. I want to do the podcast that I want to do. I want to try and retain as much listenership as I possibly can. I'd like people to come back and have a great time. And I know that the future episodes of the show will just continue to get better and better and better. But, these are people that I've never heard of before. And you know what? The people I really listen to, the people that actually, 1, listen to the podcast, 2, support the podcast, 3, are actually making money with the podcast. And not necessarily in that order, but if I don't know who you are, why should I listen to you about how I should go about creating my own podcast? This is my podcast. Please do not forget that. But on to bigger and better things. I've been looking at cryptocurrencies, things like Bitcoin, which I now own, not one coin, because one Bitcoin is worth 12,000 Australian dollars. What I did, I bought $5 worth of Bitcoin, so it's not worth a whole lot. It's actually worth a little bit more than $5 now because it's gone up a bit. And there's another cryptocurrency called Steem. That's STEEM, and it's tied to a few social networks. So there's a social network within Steem itself. So there's blogging, and then there's DTube, which is an alternative to YouTube. So, and there's D-Sound, which is an alternative to SoundCloud. So I've been uploading material, sound files and things like that, just to see how it all works, and it's not doing too badly actually. I'm starting to earn a little bit of money, not much, because I'm still only new, and it's all based on your reputation and things like that. So I'll be doing that sort of thing more often, and it's good to get a little bit more funding behind the podcast and things like that, just so I can do stuff the way that I want to be able to do it. And if you've got any ideas or anything that you'd like to hear on the podcast, any suggestions and things like that, please do contribute on wherever you have the opportunity to do so. So that would be on like YouTube or the Facebook group, or through various social media that you may know me through. And the links to all that sort of stuff should be in my show notes on the app. Anyway, we're coming to the end of my time limit. However, there is no time limit. I can do 45-minute podcasts if I want to, but I'm not going to, because I want people to stick around. So what we're going to do, I'm going to give you this episode's code word for those of you who listen to me ramble for so long. But I've been a bit rusty, and the next episode will be a lot more produced, sound effects and so on. So please tune in for that as well. Please subscribe wherever you are listening to this particular podcast. And today's code word is maximum. 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 That's all we have time for. May the rest of today and the rest of the week be easy like a Sunday morn. Bye.